One of the coolest shifts we've seen in the tabletop industry is the creation of legacy and campaign-based board games. Legacy games are mostly story-driven experiences where the actions you take and the outcomes of previous games shape how the future games play out, or how the board itself changes to become a different game altogether. Whether they're played as episodes or seasons, legacy campaigns can be a fun way to introduce gamers to new mechanics in tabletop games with the promise of new chapters or developing worlds to explore every time you gather around the table. Here are a few cooperative campaign games that I plan on binging this winter with my family and friends. You're watching Mr. Board Gamer. The first Legacy game I ever experienced was Pandemic Legacy Season 1. The original Pandemic was released in 2008. In Pandemic, created by Matt Leacock and Rob DeViow, 2 to 4 players take on the role of various health experts to stop a pandemic from spreading across the world. Throughout the game, you will use separate actions to travel through the 7 continents, curing and treating the disease in different cities, and collecting enough cards to research a cure for 4 separate strains of a virus. You've got to work quickly, because as outbreaks occur, it gets worse and worse around the world, and the game gets harder. The Legacy Edition introduces top-secret dossiers with game-changing events and permanent character upgrades so that your individual roles will actually develop a story of their own throughout the season. Without spoiling too much, in one of my earliest games of Pandemic Legacy, we nearly lost our dispatcher, an extremely powerful role who can transport other players virtually anywhere in the world with ease. One of the ways that characters can progress is by developing relationships with other characters in the game. One of my favorites is the family perk, which allows any player who starts their turn in a city with a relative to gain 1 extra action during that turn. This can get pretty powerful if you're coordinating travel with your family. The story in Pandemic Legacy will immediately grip you and make you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. And if you're really interested, check out the newly released Pandemic Legacy Season 0 and see where it all began. In Near and Far, designed by Ryan Laukin, 2 to 4 players recruit their own band of mercenaries in search of the last ruins. Near and Far can be played in 2 separate campaign modes, which make use of 11 beautifully detailed maps. In Character Mode, players take on one of the game's 8 main characters in the hunt for an artifact that represents something significant to their origin story. In Campaign Mode, players will develop a story over 10 sessions with opportunities to enhance their party and create their own legend. On your adventures, outside of recruiting mercenaries to your party, you'll also play through some cool choose-your-own-path story encounters. With hundreds of different encounters in both campaign and character mode, a wide cast of characters, and in arcade mode, which can be replayed over and over, Near and Far is definitely a game that is binge-worthy. One of my favorite parts about Near and Far is that while there can be winners or losers in arcade mode, both character mode and campaign mode are really about experiencing your character's story, with everyone around the table creating their own legends. It's some kind of board game anthology in a sense. The Legacy Edition of Aeons End is a great starting point for folks interested in cooperative deck building games. Designed by Kevin Riley and Nick Little, Aeons End Legacy tells the origin story of the player characters who train to become legendary breach mages in the city of Gravehold. Aeons End Legacy can be played in solo mode or with up to 4 players. Throughout the chapters of Aeons End Legacy, players are going to draft cards to build up their spell potential and unleash devastating combos on powerful creatures called the Nameless and their minions. Occasionally, you could get a nice assist from other characters in the story. With tons of cool perks and secret rules to unlock around every corner, this Legacy Edition is arguably the best way to step foot into the expansive universe that is Aeons End. The biggest difference between Aeon's End and Aeon's End Legacy Edition is the way that you will train and customize your unique Breach Mage from the start of the campaign through the end. All of that hard work is going to pay off when you see how powerful your Breach Mage is compared to some of the standard mages that come in other core boxes of Aeon's End. If you've seen any recent lists of most successful Kickstarters or top board game 2019, you have undoubtedly come across the name Gloomhaven. The behemoth strategy RPG designed by Isaac Childress is definitely one of the most intimidating tabletop experiences I have ever unboxed and learned. But with the release of Gloomhaven: Jaws of the Lion, they've managed to keep everything that made the original game as incredible as it is, while streamlining some of the learning experience and tweaking the components to make the game store a little bit better. And better storage means better setup and cleanup. Gloomhaven is a dungeon crawling role-playing game, and Jaws of the Lion is a standalone expansion to the original, providing 4 new classes to choose from and a new set of 25 scenarios to challenge veteran and amateur Gloomhaven players alike. Gloomhaven focuses on the deep strategy and character progression similar to what you'd find in classic turn-based role-playing games, and it minimizes the time and energy spent in the overworld, the areas outside of scenarios and combat situations. If you are a fan of deep lore and narrative-driven games, Gloomhaven will definitely scratch that itch for you. Despite the focus on combat, players will have to make choices together to advance the story and explore the world, gaining reputation and changing the world around them. Jaws of the Lion is the perfect starting point if you want to learn what Gloomhaven is all about. And if you love the game as much as I know you're going to, you've still got the full Gloomhaven core box and the upcoming Frosthaven sequel to get excited about. Drop a line in the comments below or reach out to me on Instagram at Mr. Board Gamer. As always, appreciate you for watching.